The next time you get a headache, you'll reach for a pill. You won't even think about it. But for almost all of human history, there was no pill. A headache, an infected tooth, a broken leg, any one of them could kill you. And yet, somehow, your ancestors survived. They survived with the plants they chewed, the bones they set, the bodies they cut open, and the holes they drilled into living skulls. And the strangest part isn't what they did, it's how often it actually worked. So let's start with the oldest medicine of all, plants. Long before anyone understood why, humans learned which plants did something to the body, which ones dulled pain, which ones calmed a fever, which ones cleaned a wound, and which would kill you. They learned the way a child learns a hot stove, by watching, by trying, by remembering. They chewed the bark of the willow tree. It was bitter, but the ache faded. They had no idea what was inside it. We do now. We call it aspirin. The same chemical in the same bark thousands of years before the first pharmacy. They packed wounds with moss, honey, and mold. Honey, it turns out, kills bacteria, and some of those molds carried the seed of penicillin. They were fighting infection with antibiotics without a single word for what an infection was. But knowing a plant is the easy part compared to what they did when the body actually broke. Because here's what we forget about ancient humans. When someone got hurt, they didn't just leave them behind. We found their skeletons. A man who lived for years with a useless arm, blind in one eye, and nearly deaf. On his own, he'd have died in a week. He didn't. He grew old, which means someone fed him, someone protected him for years. And we found others too. A child whose bones never grew right. An old woman who couldn't have chewed her own food. People who lived only because the group refused to let them die. This is the part we miss. The first medicine wasn't a plant or a blade. It was simply not abandoning each other. But keeping someone alive is one thing. Cutting into a living body is another. And they did cut. When a bone snapped, they didn't just hope. They pulled it straight and bound it with splints so it healed in line instead of crooked. We know because we find those bones, broken once, then perfectly reset. They drained infections, they closed wounds, they even tattooed the skin over aching joints. Pain relief pressed into the body. And then there's the operation that shouldn't exist. More than 30,000 years ago, someone's lower leg was removed. Not torn off, removed on purpose. Through skin and muscle and bone. No metal, no anesthetic, no way to stop the bleeding that we'd recognize. And the patient lived. The wound healed. They walked for years. A surgical amputation in the Ice Age. But the most shocking thing they did to the skull itself. All over the world, on every inhabited continent, we keep digging up the same impossible thing. Ancient skulls with holes cut into them. Not from a wound, not from an animal. Round, deliberate holes scraped through the bone while the person was still alive. It's called trepanation, and it's older and more common than you'd ever guess. Thousands of skulls, some over 7,000 years old. They did it for head injuries, for crushing headaches, for fits and fevers they couldn't explain. Maybe to let the pressure out, maybe to let something else out. And here is the part that stops you. The edges of those holes are smooth, and smooth means the bone grew back. Bone only grows back if you're alive. They cut into a conscious person's skull, and that person woke up and healed and lived. In some places, most of them survived, a success rate that early modern surgeons couldn't match. We like to picture ancient medicine as superstition, helpless people guessing in the dark. But look at what they actually did. Real painkillers, real antibiotics, bones reset, limbs removed, skulls opened, and survived. They weren't primitive versions of us, fumbling toward the medicine we'd invent later. They were us, facing the same pain we feel, with nothing but their hands and each other, and solving it far more often than we'd ever believe. So the next time you reach for a pill, remember where that reach comes from. It's older than farming. Older than writing, older than the day we became the last humans left. The medicine changed. The hand reaching for it never did.